IDEA. So the first step is to identify those suppliers in your multi-tier supply chain. It's not just the identification, but it's also their locations, because we want to know if they're operating, if the material, the component, has come from a restricted zone. Now, the framework should be flexible because there are many other regulatory issues. We're talking, this example, human rights due diligence. We may look at deforestation, so that the component that is based on a composite that's based on certain wood-based raw materials is coming from forests 4 tiers into my supply chain, where the owner is saying, for every tree I chop down, I'll put green in its place and not touch it for 20 years. So that's sort of deforestation. So what we're seeing is we have to have a framework.
Thank you so much for joining for another edition of the Never-Ending Climb for a Stronger Supply Chain and Procurement for Companies Running SAP. Today we have a special returning guest, Sudy B, the business doctor. Sudy, thank you so much for joining us again.
Sean, thanks for having me. Great series. I had a lot of fun last time, and I've been listening to other guests that you have, and it's really helpful. So it's keep this going. This is great.
Amazing. Thank you very, very much. You know, we've been talking about supply chain disruptions and lead times, and there's been some significant changes, not just COVID or hangover from COVID, but there's some other changes and shifts that are happening that are impacting lead times. And for companies that don't have a handle on what their lead times are by supplier, by region, by product group, et cetera, that can feel a little overwhelming. Can you tell us what you're seeing, what's driving this, and what impacts you're seeing companies have?
Let's talk about the motivation first. So, pre-pandemic, a lot of us talked about reduction of inventory. And then pandemic happened, recovery, and very quickly after recovery, we couldn't get enough inventory. So we had to have more because there was a lot of shortages. Now, in some industries, we're seeing a glut. So all the work done reducing shortages is called overages. So no matter what, there's a constant balancing. So we stopped saying inventory reduction, inventory this. It's about inventory effectiveness. One thing that drives inventory is lead time. No matter what, I want to reduce it as much as I can. If in times of shortages, I can use that quick, short lead time to open and have more opportunity, more inventory. If when lead time is high, I can still have expedited and I can still get faster inventory. So no matter what, I can do a lot of great things with lead time. Now, when plants were shut down, so semiconductor industry, when it's shut down and turns back on, it takes a long time for calibration and so on in a fabrication plant to really come back and make chips. That was one of the big problems. That got solved. Now we have a lot. So lead time is a never-ending climb to always improve. We have to always improve it. And now there are so many things impacting lead time. So what we're seeing now is incredible amounts of in human rights due diligence, so sustainability. But now we're starting to realize that there are some parts of the world that are always going to have egregious labor violations. And the U.S. government and many other governments globally have made the decision not to do business with them. So when I was a kid, I used to watch, kind of semi-pay attention to the news. And there was a comment I would hear called economic sanctions. So this is a great example. So there's various legislation that essentially, if it is certain that certain goods have come from certain parts of what we call restricted zones, I know the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol will not allow that shipment into America and will turn it around. So that is, again, impacting lead times. Now, lead time is one example of a metric in the supply chain. We see many more. But Sean, I'm going to turn the tables on you and ask you, what are you seeing out there and what are you all doing? And I'm doing my Texas. What are y'all doing?
What are y'all doing? We are doing a few things. One, I know we've got several of our customers that needed help to hone in on lead times. and hone in on lead times by region, geography, supplier, product category, products, and more, and start to go and bring that back to feed this back into their MRP so that these changing lead times you could stay on top of. And then from there, start to propose some lead time and inventory levels and safety stocks and things like that. And this is something that's an ongoing wrestling match, and it is 100% never ending climb. But that ability to bring some of those things together is not easy, but we need to find ways to make it easy for people. And so one example is when goods are received on a price basis, if that price from a spot price basis is going to continue, then let's just automatically update the standard cost for that material. Things like that, where it should be, needs to be, could be easier, just make it easier. Because people have enough on their plate to do. And the more we can automate and give them those insights, the faster they can run. And that velocity comes from the clarity of insights and understanding what's going on. So that's one thing that we're doing around the lead times. You were talking about different types of due diligence, and there was a model that you were suggesting, and I love this. It was such a powerful idea, which I think was maybe a great time to hand it over to you to tell us some more about this idea as it relates to lead time and supplier evaluation and the multi-tier nature of that.
Yes. So when you look at things like human rights due diligence, let's go back to the problem. You're my contractor, and you give me an electronic device, a phone, a desktop, a laptop, whatever. Most of the time, you, as the brand owner, the OEM, the orchestrator of the supply chain, you don't really touch it or build it. You have a contractor build it, they get components. Key components, you know who they are, but then you go through the multi-tier. There's, tiers 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. When you get down to metals, coatings, certain semiconductor pieces, ASICs, they can come from parts of the world you or I don't even know. However, we have to track that. So the hard part about any sort of due diligence in the supply chain for sustainability, not just human rights, but for any sort of making sure that not just supplier 1, supplier 2, tier 3, tier 4 are doing the right thing. It's a multi-tier. The hard part is we need to identify them. So the idea is an acronym I use called IDEA. So the first step is to identify those suppliers in your multi-tier supply chain. It's not just the identification, but it's also their locations, because we want to know if they're operating, if the material, the component, has come from a restricted zone. Now, the framework should be flexible because there are many other regulatory issues. We're talking this example, human rights due diligence. We may look at deforestation so that the component that is based on a composite that's based on certain wood-based raw materials is coming from forests, 4 tiers into my supply chain, where the owner is saying, for every tree I chop down, I'll put 3 in its place and not touch it for 20 years. So that's sort of deforestation. So what we're seeing is we have to have a framework, and then we have to be able to apply different types of sustainability or other initiatives. So the key thing is we need to identify my multi-tiers. That's the I and idea. Then we need to define what we'd like from them, what type of information. Maybe we even want a contract certifying what they're going to do. Then we engage, we execute operationally. But as material comes in, as I'm watching things, you need to apply. That's the A in ideas. I need to apply whether it's human rights due diligence principles, checking for restricted zones, making sure deforestation by country is applied to the products that I'm building or buying. So IDEA stands for identify, define, engage, apply.
I love it. When you can take something that's complex and then break it down into a few simple letters with an acronym that you can follow. One of the things that I liked about that is, when I'm looking at the A, I also tend to think about analytics and monitoring.
Yep.
And the the other A, and this idea of being able to get suppliers to certify that they are complying with these requirements. I know that's been, speaking to the what are we doing, that's been something that some folks have needed help with, of being able to go and collect those certificates and map those back to the suppliers and map those back to the goods that are being purchased. You had identified something really, really interesting there. When you're executing, one of the things that all of this other noise and supply chain lead time variation and other, you know, fundamentally functions of global trade, when these things start to get tricky, they start to create new flavors and variations in the purchasing channels and
Yeah.
in the procurement channels. And those procurement channels start to become so much more complex. And one of the things that we've found over and over again is that the specialization of human knowledge, when you're getting into that the getting into the execution, is specialized and focused in the procurement and the supply chain teams. And outside of that, when there's somebody that just needs something, they often don't know or candidly even particularly know that they should care. They probably do care deep down, mostly. We like to give them that, right? At minimum. We like to assume that positive intent of wanting
Yep.
to do the right thing. And when we want to do that, we found that the simplification has got a new name. Speaking of new acronyms or new names, there's this new term, relatively new in the last year. It's getting a fair bit of excitement, called intake management. And basically, what that means is when you've got a group of people that are trying to follow all of these global trade requirements and all of the different purchasing channels, and more, a distributed set of systems of maybe there's this system for services and this system for indirect goods and this system for direct goods and this other system for this flavor of direct goods. These end up creating the conditions where there's multiple channels and multiple purchasing channels and multiple flavors of purchasing channels.
Yep.
And that starts to feel really confusing, let alone when you need something and then you need to figure out, well, now we need to run a sourcing event and then we need to figure out who wins and then we need to onboard them as a vendor. And if there's multiple systems, sometimes that's tricky. So creating, making ways to smooth that out and create this concept of the front door for procurement. This has been a really, really important piece. And when you think about things that organizations can do to help address this, getting the insights into the multi-tier
Yeah.
supply chain, getting insights into how easy is it to onboard a new supplier if that's tricky. One organization needed to be able to do it in less than 10 and they're stuck across a couple of systems trying to do it and they're sitting at about 35 days and that's just way too long. So those are a few of the things that start to trigger. I think you used a wonderful term, collaborative improvements.
Yes.
And one of those was taking some of the analysis and sharing some of that with their suppliers, letting your suppliers see the analysis of their lead time, price compliance, delivery on time performance, etc. What are you seeing, Sudy, in some of those collaborative improvements of sharing some of the analytic with your supplier group or
Yep.
with your supplier?
Well, I think I'm gonna answer your question a couple of different ways. When you think of intake management, think about procurement in general. In the old days, there was a procurement department. Users never bought anything. We have gone to a self-service economy, just like booking travel. I'm old enough to remember when I actually had to call my company's travel agent on a telephone and a landline.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? We actually had phones with cords. Now it's
Yep.
using tools like Concur and all that. So that can be one form of intake management that we take for granted. Because what do you want to book? A flight? Hey, do you want to book a hotel? Do you need to book a car? And by the way, all of that follows guidelines that the company has set up: acceptable prices, acceptable prices. Now, procurement in general, we all do it. We all need to do various things, buy different things, whether it's a contract for a certain project, whether it's a laptop, whether it's test tubes and beakers. It gets even more complicated. So, to your point, the ability to have a common front door and then to say, make it a wizard. Eventually, it'll be good old talking to the system. I need to buy X. So there's an AI large language model that will lead you to a front end for intake management. So the ability to understand what you're really trying to do, even if you mispronounced it, and then what you need to do, and then the path to get you there. So that at the end of the day, leadership sees that the organization is compliant to spend practices, and we have user adoption, that users are leveraging the processes and policies so that our spend is compliant. So that becomes a huge area to think through.
Absolutely. I'm flashing back as you're describing that to a conversation with chief procurement officer, and they're describing how I don't understand it. We bought the best of breed for these 5 systems for procurement, and we're not getting the adoption and the spend compliance we wanted. And I said, well, how does somebody know when they need something? How they well, they just call procurement. I said, well, didn't your procurement team go through a 30% reduction? So there's a little harder to get a hold of that team now because there's all of these self-service tools that were supposed to be created. But what I'm hearing is nobody knows which one of those self-service tools they're supposed to use.
Right.
So they don't have the front door that makes it simple and easy to go get the request to the right place. I think it's more common than we would like to imagine it is.
I have a joke that says you might accidentally buy an airplane versus purchase a flight. I think systems aren't that bad, but you never know what could happen, right? If you do it the wrong way, your spend limits may not get you to the airplane, but at least you don't want to waste the time looking at an airplane catalog.
Yeah, or the product recommendations. Like
Yeah,
when we ordered a replacement toilet seat from Amazon, and for the next month it said, "Hey, you want to buy another toilet seat?" No, we're good. We got it.
that's not a replenished item. That's a maintenance item. So that's the
Exactly.
difference, right?
The quality of recommendations is pretty important.
Yeah.
So when you're thinking about behavior and sharing metrics and sharing kind of a scorecard and how things are going with some of those suppliers, what are you seeing in that space in terms of some organizations have fantastic analytics and they look at them and they use them, and then their suppliers are wondering where the numbers come from on the scorecard, or they're wondering why maybe they're getting a beat down at the end of the quarter and they thought they were doing pretty good. It comes as a surprise to them. What are you seeing in terms of the level of insight being shared with suppliers through collaboration tools like that?
Well, again, our thinking, a lot of conventional thinking is a lot of for our organizations is inside the four walls. And we think of the word network ERP, networked economy, supply chain economy. Now we think of network or collaborative improvement. So if you have, and lead time was one of my favorite metrics, but we can even change that to say on time delivery. Another crucial metric in the supply chain. Well, suppliers are part of the problem in on time, they're other half of the equation. So it's important that you have a framework to share insights to your suppliers. So that's where analysis and insights, the term for that is AI. That's my joke name for AI because we want to be able to provide our suppliers saying, why is it when I ordered this product from this location to that location, the lead time is 3 times as much as these other combinations? And it's a discussion, and it may not be a negotiation, a price issue. It just might be how you order. So it might be change your minimum order time. The supplier can have 7 factories to service. The sixth one was acquired, and everybody else is great at making 100 a day. This new one is great at making 200 a day. But you order 100 a day because that's been your process. So that one that makes 200 is waiting for more other customers to batch up so they can put that order through and make 200, delaying your process. So again, you might want to change that location to 200 a day. So, and that's just a discussion. So the ability to openly share, it's kind of the quintessential one version of the truth. But instead of just you and me, Sean, because we're in the same company doing it, it is you, me, and the supplier base looking at it and looking at it together where the supplier has knowledge, we have knowledge, share the insights.
It's the supply chain for a reason, right?
Yeah, yeah. Are you going to do the hard thing? Because we're going to get, I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, yeah. Let's both do that. There's a random new feature coming out from Apple.
Yep,
That's been fun.
yep,
This
yep.
one, I think, Sudy. I hope I can get this right. This is the one that I hope conveys how I feel and the appreciation for you and for your contribution to the community. But if I can get this right,
I
this
had trouble with
is
that.
fantastic. I
That's great.
I
I'm just going to
really
do,
really
yeah,
appreciate you,
thank you.
Sudy. Thanks so much, Sudy. Appreciate you. And thank you for joining for another edition of the Never Ending Climb for Stronger Supply Chain and Procurement on SAP, and our never ending climb to be the number one add on for SAP Procurement. Thank you so much, everyone. Have an amazing, amazing week.
Thank you.